The most dangerous version of AI use doesn't feel dangerous. It feels like efficiency. And while you're calling it productive, your ability to think independently, to trust your own judgment, to know what you believe before you ask anything, is quietly going offline. Not because the technology is doing something wrong. It's because you are. Here's the thing. This is not about job replacement. It's not about automation. That conversation is real, but it's the wrong one. The threat that nobody's talking about right now is internal. It's the slow collapse of the thing that made you valuable in the first place. Your cognition, your identity, your agency. And the reason most people miss it is because it feels like growth the entire time. Everything that's currently being talked about, AI risk, is focusing on the external layer. So let me draw 3 boxes here. And these are to be proportional. So the external layer in the sense of what is it doing to industries, to markets, to jobs. But there's 3 internal layers that nobody is talking about. And right now, all 3 are being quietly restructured by a tool that you most likely opened up this morning, ChatGPT or Claude. You see, the gap isn't between you and AI. The gap is between who you are right now and who you'll be after 2 more years of using it the way you're using it today. And those are not the same person. And through the many entrepreneurs and founders, creators that I work with, I found this pattern and I mapped it out across all of them. And what I noticed was that the ones that struggle aren't always the ones that are using AI the least. They're often the ones that are using AI the most and confusing output volume with identity strength. This is what I call the outsourced strategist archetype. This is the person that used to walk into rooms as the strategic one, the one with the strategy, with the framework, with the methodology, with the understanding, the one with the answer, the one that could see the pattern before anyone else could even see the problem. And then Claude, ChatGPT, or any other AI tool enters the system. And at first, everything gets better. Their recommendations are sharper. Their presentations are faster, more efficient, and their thinking sounds more polished than ever. You see, they're using GPT, Claude, to be more productive, to become more efficient, to get better outputs, to have automations, workflows work for them so that they don't have to manually do any of that work. And so overall, it's a net positive. But then something subtle starts happening underneath the performance. Their internal experience becomes something completely different because they're relying so much on the machine, on GPT, on Claude to tell them what to think, how to think, and why to think. And so after time, their internal dialogue is, I used to know what to think, what I thought. Now I don't know what I think until I ask the machine. You see, the outsourced strategist doesn't have a productivity problem. They have an identity erosion problem, and they don't see it coming because it arrives disguised as performance. That's what we're mapping out today. So let's fill out these boxes. So the first box here is cognition. Then we have identity. Then we have agency. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to understand these 3 different levels and the impact they have internally within ourselves when we're using AI and we're using it to outsource a part of ourselves, our thinking, our conclusions, our understanding, our awareness, where we're giving it all to the machines. But I want you to become aware of exactly what's going on and how you can make sure that you're using the machine as co-intelligence versus giving up a part of yourself with your agency and using AI to its full max potential. So here's what we're covering. We're going to cover the 3 levels plus the self-collapse loop. We're going to look at how AI is quietly restructuring all 3 of these and why most people only notice this when the erosion is already super deep. And second, we're going to go over the 4 mechanisms of self-collapse. We're going to walk through the specific ways that this collapse and this mechanism is operating right now. And they're invisible until you know what to look for. And we're going to walk through that through this video. And then finally, we're going to walk through the AIM framework. This is 3 shifts that change the entire relationship to the one that actively builds you. Okay, so one of the first things that I want to go over a little bit more in depth is the outsourced strategist. And maybe you can see yourself within this archetype because from the outside, it looks like they're doing everything right. They use GPT, Claude, or any of these other AI tools on a daily basis to become more productive, more efficient, to create workflows, automations, strategies, content, graphics. They use it extremely well. But when you map the usage pattern over time, one behavioral sequence starts repeating. A strategic problem arrives. They open AI, GPT, or Claude, not to confirm what they already think, but to find out what they think. And what starts to happen over time is that they're going to AI every time that something comes up where they're unsure, they're uncertain, and they haven't made an assumption, an analysis themselves internally first about what they think or the perspective or the angle that they're looking at this problem from, because they are then going directly to AI without having that thinking and that analysis and that perspective and that assumption first. And they're asking AI, GPT, Claude, what they think versus first internally having an assumption, an analysis, a perspective, a thought, and thinking about the problem first. They're relying on the machine to do the thinking for them. And so what starts to happen is that they slowly start to lose themselves. The strategy, the perspective, the one with the answers, the one that could find out and figure out a problem before most people even knew it was a problem. They could see patterns, all of that, because now they're going to AI and they're trying to figure out if there's even a problem here, if there's even a pattern here, like what's the issue here, because they have not gone internally first. And so they're starting to lose themselves in the whole process, even though in the external, it looks like they're the most productive they've ever been. So they begin to lose contact with the part of themselves that knows how to generate direction without external permission. And that is the danger, because when AI, GPT, Claude, or whatever tool that you're using becomes the place that you go to figure out and find out what you think, instead of the place that you go to sharpen what you already think, you don't become more strategic. You become dependent on borrowed clarity. Let me show you exactly what's happening. So let's go back to the 3 levels. This is 3 layers of who you are. And here's what AI does to each one if you're not watching. AI automates your cognition, and then AI influences, and then AI hijacks your agency, so that you're no longer making decisions of your own volition. You're asking the machine first what they think, and then you're coming to conclusions from there. Instead of having conclusions form first, assumptions, analysis, presuppositions, and then going to the machine to sharpen those. Your cognition is your ability to think, to reason, and to work through complexity on your own. So this is your ability to wrestle with the problem, to go through and do your own analysis and own research and come to your own conclusions. And if you're not careful, AI will automate that for you so that you lose your mental muscle. Think about this. When you have a problem down the road and you are thinking through a problem and you're like, man, this is too much mental bandwidth. I'm just going to go and ask AI to figure this out for me, versus first wrestling with the problem and making an analysis or an initial assumption. Then what happens is you lose your mental muscle. You go from like having this big muscle here, okay, in your arm. Think of this is like a muscle. It goes to where it's flat. And then it starts to die down like this. And so you start to lose that part of yourself, this muscle, just like a regular muscle. If you work out and you have reps and you are consistent with it, it's going to continue to be built, right? But if you don't use that mental muscle anymore of your cognition, then you end up losing a part of yourself. And then your identity, the pattern of beliefs, standards, and self-concept that makes you who you are, that makes you you. Every time that you're using AI's voice, AI's perspective, instead of developing your own, and every time you start to see the world through AI's lens, you start to lose a version of yourself, the version of yourself of who you are, your identity, the thing that makes you uniquely yourself. And so your identity starts to drift. And then your agency, this is your ability to make a decision that tells you that you are making decisions off your own agency, of your own volition, off of your own analysis, perspective, and that you're creating your reality through those choices. But then AI starts to hijack that. And it's not something that happens very quickly. It happens very subtly, gradually, comfortably, in ways that feel like efficiency. So what ends up happening is that, here's the loop. So AI solves, and then you stop solving. When you stop solving, your identity weakens. And then your identity weakens, and then your agency collapses. And then AI solves more. So I know this could have been a better loop here, but just want you to have an idea and an illustration here to understand this loop. AI solves, you stop solving because you're no longer using your mental muscle, and then your identity weakens. You start to lose a part of who you are, and then your agency collapses. So then AI is hijacking your agency, your ability to make decisions off your own judgment, perspective, analysis, right? And it just becomes one big whole loop where you give up everything internally that has made you you, and that's made you aware, and that's built your awareness. You give up everything to the machine so that you ultimately lose yourself. And so that's how you want to think about like the machines merging with humans. It's something where if it does happen, and most likely it will, but when it does happen, it's going to be people who have given up their entire cognition, identity, and agency to the machines themselves. But instead of doing that, we want to be able to have full control and use the machine as a co-intelligence to become more aware. Because in the future, what's going to happen is that people are going to give up all of these three things here. But those that are going to come out on top and be on top are the ones that use AI as co-intelligence to improve and enhance their identity, the version of themselves, their thinking. They can use AI as a thinking partner where they come to AI with their own conclusions, their own assumptions, their own analysis, and they ask, what do you think? What's your perspective here? Why? Why not this? Why this over here? And where they're constantly using their mental muscle first, and then going to the machine, versus going to the machine without any type of mental muscle that's being utilized first, and wrestling with the problem, with the challenge, with something that needs to get accomplished or an outcome, right? That's the way that you are not able to lose yourself to the machines, by having your own cognition, your own identity, your own agency that stays intact because you use AI as a thinking partner, as co-intelligence, instead of something that you outsource yourself to. And so the danger is not, let's put right here, danger is not AI replacing humans. It's humans replacing themselves. Powerful. Okay, so let's go over the 4 mechanisms of self-collapse. So I'm going to go ahead and erase the board here, and we'll jump right in. Okay, so let's go over the 4 mechanisms of self-collapse. Number 1, cognitive offloading. This is where you stop solving problems, and it's not because you can't. It's because GPT or Claude can do it faster, better, with less discomfort. Every time that you reach for AI before you've wrestled with the problem, you are practicing the atrophy of your own reasoning. And this is probably the most important factor and component here when it comes to losing yourself through AI usage. When you're not able to sit there and think about a problem, think about a challenge, and decide internally first, right? Because intuitively, when you think about something, you normally intuitively know what to do, even though if it doesn't feel good, right? Even though if you know that it's uncomfortable, it's going to make you feel a certain way, right? You intuitively know that it's the right decision, or you have an idea of what you need to do. And when you continue doing that and using that mental muscle, an internal muscle, then it continues to build up and maintain its strength. However, when you go through something and you have a challenge, a problem, and you don't think through it yourself first, and you ask the machine, then you're giving everything away that should be done and handled internally first. You're losing a part of yourself. And so you don't want it to be where every time you have a challenge or a problem or issue, you go to GPT or Claude or whatever tool and ask them, what do you think? What should I do here? You need to go to it first after doing your own analysis and own wrestling with the problem, with the challenge, whatever it may be. So you're not doing the cognitive offloading, right? Because you're maintaining the strength of your own cognitive ability to wrestle with problems and challenges and whatever that may be, right? So very important. So let's go to number 2. This is the emotional avoidance. So what happens here is that AI becomes your buffer for discomfort. Like anytime that you're feeling a certain way, you're feeling reactive, you're going to go to GPT or Claude and try to make yourself feel better, try to validate your feelings. And here's the thing, discomfort is where the decision-making identity is built. The ability to sit with the hard problem without an immediate answer. That's a cognitive and emotional muscle. And as I mentioned, just like with any other muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. And really with anything, right? If you stop doing something for a long period of time and you used to be excellent at it, you're going to be rusty. You're going to lose it when you try to start it back up. However, it's still going to be there, right? There's a muscle memory, but it's going to be very much so in the back, hidden, right? Like in cobwebs and very small so that you can't really see it and you don't really use it. And so the emotional avoidance is really a big thing here, because think about it. When you're going through an emotion and you are not wanting to sit there and sit through that emotion and just go to GPT or Claude and say, hey, I'm feeling this way. What should I do? Or, validate how I'm feeling. He said this, she said that, or this happened to me, and this person cut me off, or whatever it may be. And you're asking for validation is just going to validate how you feel, versus if you're able to sit there with the problem of a feeling that you have, maybe it's negative. Maybe you're feeling sad. Maybe you're feeling frustrated. Maybe you're feeling, a certain way about somebody. And maybe you have fear. Maybe you have, frustration over something that somebody did or said, whatever that may be. When it's a negative feeling, sometimes, and really, I would say every time that you're going through that, the best way to go through this is to feel it, acknowledge it, accept it for what it is, and then create space from that. Hey, negative feeling, fear, I see you and I feel you. And I know you're here to protect me, and you're here to make sure that I don't get into unsafe situations, right? You're here to protect me and you're here to do what you need to do to make sure that I stay in line and I survive. However, you're not needed here at this point because I'm going to take this action or make this move regardless. But I appreciate what you're doing and that you're here to protect me. If you don't wrestle with that internally first and you go to the GPT or Claude to try to make you feel better or validate how you feel, you're going to continue to do that loop of just going to the system, to the machine to validate how you feel versus wrestling with that feeling of understanding that it's there and acknowledging it, let it run through your body, separate it from yourself, right? Create that space. And then you'll notice that it'll eventually go away. But if you continue to use a machine just to validate how you feel, you're going to lose yourself. And then number 3, identity borrowing. This is where you start sounding like the AI, GPT Claude, instead of sounding like yourself. And this one's very subtle. You don't really start noticing this until it's already started to happen. When your primary source of language, frameworks, and concepts are all AI, you start internalizing AI patterns instead of your own. Now, it's different once you are able to use AI in a way that allows you to understand how you think, how you process, how you see the world, right? Where you can use AI as a reflection system to reflect back to you how you naturally, organically think, right? That's a whole different story. And that's the best way to use AI as a reflection system. And we're going to talk about that later in this video. But what I wanted to get across here is that once you start adopting AI's frameworks, perspectives, and using them as your own, that's when you also start to lose yourself, because then you start to adopt the identity almost of the AI, and then you start to lose a part of your own identity. And then number 4, future self disconnection. And this is super important because what happens here is that you start to lose the ability to see your own future. You start to lose the capacity to project forward, to hold a vision, and to orient yourself towards it. When you consistently outsource that projection to AI, when AI maps your possibilities, the pathway for doing that yourself atrophies. And so this is where if you can't think to yourself about, hey, what does my life look like 3-5 years from now? And you can't go to AI without having that perspective, that view, that analysis, that understanding, that vision, then you're losing that part of yourself in terms of the future self. You're going to AI and asking it, what do you think about my future self or my future version of myself, right? That's where you don't want to be going, because you want to be doing this internally yourself and then go into AI to adjust and modify based off of what you already know, believe, and understand. And you see, when we come to the understanding that AI is not this malicious thing, in terms of AI is not or doesn't have to control you, because it only needs you to stop controlling yourself. And so this is how the machine is able to take over very subtly, where merge happens, where it's very subtle and it's creeping and creeps up on you. It doesn't happen automatically. You just start to do all the outsourcing. And then one day you wake up and you're like, let me ask AI what I should do. And then that's where you stop controlling yourself. Okay? AI doesn't need to come in and take over the entire, system and the world. It doesn't need to do that. It just needs you to, you yourself, stop controlling yourself so that it will take over without you even realizing it. Okay, so Now what I want to walk through is the AI mastery model, AIM. So let me go ahead and erase the board here, and we'll jump right into that. Okay, so the AIM, AI mastery model. You see, this is the framework that changes the relationship. It's not about using AI less or that AI is the problem. It's about the relationship, the posture that you bring to every interaction, the one that determines whether AI builds your identity or gradually replaces it. This is 3 principles, and each one directly counters one of the 4 collapse mechanisms. So the first one, A, you want to augment, not outsource. This is where you want to use AI not to take over your thinking, but to enhance it. And here's the distinction. I want you to think about it. Do you use AI after you've wrestled with the problem first and made assumptions, analysis, and your own research, okay? And then going to AI to see if those analysis or assumptions are true or correct, and why or why not? Or are you just going to AI right out of the gate, right out of the bat, right? And just going and saying, hey, what do you think? And, what do you think about the whole situation? Which one of those are you doing? And if you're going to AI without first thinking through a problem, then you're likely starting to outsource your thinking without realizing it. And so augment, what this really means is that, as I mentioned, you're just getting your own analysis, your own assumptions. You're bringing something that you've already wrestled with internally to the entire interaction. Hey, GPT, Claude, I'm going through this problem. Here's the context. Here's what I think I should do. Here's my analysis. Here's what they said. Here's what happened. Here's the whole entire situation and how I think I should handle it. What do you think? And why do you think that? Why would that be the best thing for me? Why or why not, right? You're coming to the whole entire interaction already doing your own initial due diligence, so to speak. And then you're asking AI just to give you an analysis based on the entire context of the situation that you've already provided, that you've already internally had done yourself first. And then AI comes back and sharpens it. And when you're outsourcing to AI, what you're doing there is GPT or Claude is doing the thinking first. And then you're reacting to the output of what GPT came back and responded with. Step number 2, integrate with identity. This is where you want to use AI in ways that reinforces who you are, not in ways that drift you away from it. And another thing about integrating AI with your identity is that using AI, GPT, Claude, as a way to improve the current version of yourself in the sense of asking it questions about, hey, everything that you've seen and, through all my interactions with you, how do I process information? How do I see the world? Okay. How am I currently as an identity? Like, what is my identity's characteristics, perspectives, worldview, all of that? And then use that as an anchor point to then be able to ask AI, hey, based off all of this, my identity, currently where it's at, I want to get to a version of me that has ABC outcomes, that's living here, that's doing this, that's making this amount of money. What would I need to do in order for me to step into that future version of myself? What would it require? Okay. And so that's how you can use AI to integrate with your identity, but also enhance your identity by being able to understand where you're currently at as a set point, and then asking AI, what would it require for me based off where I currently am right now to be or to step into this future version of myself who's doing ABC? Like, what does that look like? Help me outline that. Give me the steps, right? So you're using AI to augment your identity, to help you become a better version of yourself instead of losing a part of your current identity. And then final step number 3, M, mirror. Don't replace. This is where you want to use AI to see yourself more clearly, not to replace what you see. And this goes back into the integration with your identity. This is the most powerful way for you to use AI. You can use AI to automate, to create workflows, to create graphics, images, strategies, content, all of the tool aspect side of things. But the mirror, this is the most powerful way for you to use AI, because then you can start to see what are your patterns, what are your worldviews, what are your perspectives, how do you see the world, how do you structure your internal architecture in terms of your thought processes, how you see and interact with the world. AI can see all of that based off your language, based off how you interact with it. And so using that information will help you get a reflection, a mirror, and hold it in front of you and say, hey, this is who I truly am, because AI isn't going to be biased and be like trying to make you feel good and not hurt your feelings. Like, hey, GPT Claude, based off all our conversations, tell me about myself. How do I interact with people? How do I interact with the world? What is my perspective? What are my blind spots? What are things that I need to work on? And how can I become better than I currently am, right? Use it as a reflection to see where you currently are, because then you can use AI as a co-intelligence to sharpen your thinking, sharpen your perspectives, and sharpen who you are, right? You can grow and you can become more aware of all the blind spots. Because think about this, self-reflection is something that really is truly powerful for being able to become a better version of yourself. But rarely do any of us practice self-reflection. But with AI, you can practice self-reflection as a mirror, okay? You can have a private conversation with GPT or Claude. I recommend GPT because GPT, for me, I mean, listen, you can do either one of those, but for me, I've had a lot of deep rabbit holes conversations with GPT. And so I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for GPT, for how it's been able to really illuminate my identity, my perspectives, my worldview, and give me a good self-reflection of myself so that I can improve myself and become a better version of myself. So with AI, it allows you to have an unbiased self-reflection, right? Think about like you're sitting down and having a conversation and you're saying, hey, tell me everything about myself, okay? What are my blind spots? What are my challenges, my issues? Where's my thinking limited? Where's my perspective limited? Where am I holding myself back? Like all of these different things that will allow you to see yourself that much more clearly so that you could enhance yourself, become a better version of yourself, and ultimately leverage AI as a co-intelligence and not have it take over yourself without you realizing it. So when you use AI as a mirror, yourself evolves. When you use AI as a replacement for everything that you do currently internally, the self collapses. So the future is not about humans being controlled by AI. It's humans that are enhanced through self-awareness, through the self-reflection aspect of the mirror perspective and angle that allows you to see yourself without any bias, with full clarity. So let me ask you a question. When a hard problem arrives, do you sit with it first, or does AI get there before you? When you picture where you're going, can you see it without asking AI to describe it? Because the version of you that can answer yes to all those questions is the version that AI cannot replicate, and it's the version that is most at risk of quietly disappearing. AI is not here to replace you, it's here to reveal you.